Today's guest is someone whose entire mission is about lifting others. As president and CEO of Goodwill Keystone, Ed Kingfish Lada leads an organization that transforms donations into opportunities, creating ripples of impact across our community. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Lada. Welcome, Ed. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me. That was an amazing intro.
You know, I have to give you the intro you deserve, right? Let's start there. Kingfish. This is your nickname. There's got to be a story behind here. I want to know the story.
Well, so it was a dark and stormy night on the Gulf of Mexico. No, that's what I think a lot of people think of when they hear the nickname. But I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and in Louisiana, if you know anything about kind of political lore, there was a very populous governor named Huey P. Long that was governor of Louisiana, who was much beloved by the common folk, but was assassinated on the steps of the Capitol, or maybe inside the Capitol, actually. There were a couple movies made after him, but essentially that's kind of the background of the nickname itself, coming from Louisiana. And last time my family was all together was at my nephew's wedding, and my nephew was like, when I got my first CEO job within Goodwill in Kansas City, he said, "Oh, you're some big kingfish now." And I owned it kind of like a badge. When someone calls you a kingfish in Louisiana, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's like, it's like, don't forget where you came from, right? You're not bigger than where you came from. Remember your roots, right? And don't overstep or don't overstay your welcome kind of thing is typically it's a warning, if someone calls you a kingfish in Louisiana. But I use it as an opportunity to reconnect to my roots, right? So, I kind of grew up in poverty for most of my childhood and adulthood. And so whenever I get to explain what kingfish means, especially up here in Pennsylvania, it just allows me to remember where I came from, talk about my family, talk about my roots. And so, I like to kind of play with the narrative a little bit about, kingfish, like, you're some pompous kind of thing going on over here. But the reality of it is just trying to stay connected to my roots and remember why I do what I do.
I love that. Well, what you are doing is fantastic. And I love that you're staying connected to your roots and this idea of, where you came in New Orleans to Pennsylvania. Okay. Like how did you end up here in Pennsylvania, and what, you alluded a little bit to growing up in New Orleans. What led you to Goodwill? Like, what's part of that pre-leadership journey to becoming a CEO that you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. Well, honestly, it's due to my wife. My wife forced me to go in an interview. I got recruited, worked for a property management company, a Black-owned business in New Orleans for 11 years, and I got recruited to the local Goodwill there in New Orleans to be their vice president of contracts. The night before the interview, I'm like, hey, man, I kind of want to do something different. I want to go back into kind of political science where I got part of my degree in, and she was like, babe, just go on an interview. It's probably something totally different. And then here we are, almost 14 years later in Pennsylvania. But essentially, my journey within Goodwill was essentially finding employment for people with significant disabilities. And so I was able to kind of take that small business entrepreneurial hustle that I learned with that property management company. And even before then, working for the local Chamber of Commerce was kind of my first foray into nonprofit work. But when I realized, I can weaponize this skill set for good and find employment for people with significant disabilities and actually earn a buck for the mission of Goodwill, at that point I kind of fell in love with it. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful journey from that point on.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Goodwill? Because me having been able to work with you and serve on the board, I learned a lot about the social enterprise that it is. And you really are making a difference for those that you are serving. Can you just share a little bit about the organization, how that works, and maybe some of the programming that you're doing? Again, everyone thinks of the thrift store, but it is so much more. What
more than a store.
Way more than a store.
Well, kind of talk globally for Goodwill. Most people think every Goodwill is the same, right? But we are part of what's called a federated model of 501c3 nonprofits, right? So each Goodwill, wherever you're listening, each Goodwill has their own board of directors, probably their own CEO, and we have our own territories. And so, kind of give you an example of our size and scope. About $8.5 billion entity within North America. We're the largest workforce development providers in in North America. I want to say last time I looked, we're the second largest online learning platform behind Coursera, which no one really knows about. We actually have courses on Coursera, which is really cool, the Goodwill brand as a whole. But my organization is Goodwill Keystone area, which is in central and southeastern PA. We operate in 22 counties, as far west as Gettysburg, up to all of Lehigh Valley, and most all the way down to the Philly suburbs. And within our territory, we have 40 retail stores, 3 distribution centers. But our whole purpose in this is creating sustainable communities, right? And how do we create sustainability in individual and families' lives? We do that through the stores because we're a second, third, fourth chance employer. A third of my employees are people with documented disabilities, and our whole jam is helping people reach economic self-sustainability through work. And so, when people come to the stores, they're able to supply for their families with gently used items. But there's also a huge sustainability component of that. Every store we open diverts about 1.5 million pounds from landfills every year, and creates these jobs. And they're massive economic engines from an economic development standpoint. When we plant a seed, we're there for 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah. And but that store contract, though, the lanyap, which is a New Orleans, Louisiana terms, like a little cherry on top, is that we're able to do these amazing kind of workforce development and mission services. So we have a very robust reentry program right now in partnership with all the Goodwills in Pennsylvania, where we have 2 years into the program with 0% recidivism, having served 500 federal inmates as they were coming released, which is an extremely special program. We have our Women of Wealth program, which is teaching entrepreneurial skills, but also we're the first Goodwill in the country to teach AI literacy. And so we do all these things through the construct of the social enterprise, in that Goodwill is blessed with extremely generous community that donates their gently used items. But the economy that we're able to create from that allows us to be very agile in what does Pennsylvania need from a mission and resource standpoint. And so that's kind of the beauty of the social enterprise, is when we do get philanthropy dollars or government dollars, it's typically because we've already proven out this mission program here that's really in changing lives and improving families, and leading people on a path to generational wealth so they can break the shackles of poverty and criminality and health issues and all those things. And so the beauty of the store is when you donate to a store or, get a job at a store, it really is a launching pad to all these other things. And it's our secret sauce, honestly. I'm surprised more countries around the world don't have this social enterprise construct, but it really is just a circular model of support for our local communities.
It's a wonderful ecosystem that you're developing. And, as you mentioned, from all of the services you're providing to the education in the stores that are happening, the opportunities that are there. And then you mentioned a little bit about workforce development. So let's kind of go there a little bit. You said that you were doing some work around teaching workforce development around AI. I know you do workforce development on a lot of different subjects. And also a little bit about how you're able to bring emerging technologies to those who may not otherwise have exposure to that. And I know we both have a passion for technology, right? We love all of that kind of good stuff. So tell me a little bit about how you're able to do that, or what kind of training around AI are you providing?
So for us at Goodwill Keystone, and again, the narrative is definitely growing across the country, there are some pretty basic kind of essential skills, right? That is, how do you work in a team, and what they used to call soft skills, but really it's a matter of how do you work with a peer, and how do you solve problems together and things like that. But foundationally, though, what Goodwills typically teach across the country are things like financial literacy and digital literacy. It's been our point of view since 2023 now, that May 2023, when ChatGPT dropped, we realized that AI, the need for AI literacy was going to be foundational moving forward because of how transformational tech was. Now, I had the luxury and the privilege of working alongside computer vision machine learning before, when I was the CEO of the Goodwill in Kansas City. And we were developing a proof of concept with some computer vision machine learning AI to help identify fabric composition and defects in clothing and things like that, just to see if something off the shelf, which was formerly for boxing and kitting and labeling, to be able to do this. And from that, we were able to kind of build, while I was in Kansas City, the Artemis Initiative, which is kind of future state of work, workforce development, where we had individual program participants with significant disabilities help us build a neural network to be able to train AI to identify these things. And that's kind of where I kind of cut my teeth and understood the potential of it. But in that research, I realized like there's a tidal wave of change coming, and we weren't talking about it. So, and I was the first CEO in the movement to kind of bring it up. And I had a friend of mine say, Ed, I honestly thought you were Chicken Little about this stuff. Maybe you're just super early. I'm like, well, I appreciate that. It was really kind for you to say, kind of. But I was appreciative of it. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing with AI in particular is that even if technology doesn't get any better today, it's still transformational technology. And what it really represents is this greenfield of opportunity for people that are underskilled, low skilled, people with disabilities and so on and so forth to really skill up, right? And so what we're seeing with AI is this kind of democratization of knowledge that now someone, think of a single mother, 2 kids, 2 jobs, so that maybe has 30 minutes to herself, to get something done. Now all of a sudden has this legal expert on her hip, or, we teach people in some of our programs how to take a picture of their fridge and their spice rack and their pantry and be like, okay, what can I make with what I have? And how do I budget and these sorts of things. So for us at a philosophical level, we believe generative AI in particular can help solve for things like time poverty as a barrier to employment.
Interesting.
And really focusing on how do you use these skills that you're going to learn or as you learn AI literacy at home to help find more time or help your family, help your kids, and just the access that it can be, but also recognize the biases that are in the systems and the pitfalls, right? And so for us, it's kind of become a categorical imperative for you Emmanuel Kant fans out there, but it really is like, all right, we know this is coming. Typically during industrial revolutions, the first people are left behind are people with disabilities and barriers to employment. And so for us, we see this as kind of an imperative that, hey, we have to teach these skills so people can keep up kind of to stay market relevant as the technology changes.
Fantastic. It's interesting. Even just, the one little nugget there of time poverty, right? Like it's something that we don't always think about, but those little small things can add up to a big impact, not to mention the greater understanding of the technology for being able to move into the workforce.
Yeah, I don't think we think, unless you get older in age or have a life issue, right? It's like, time's a commodity.
It is.
Right? And so when you think about, especially if you have, coming through the justice system and trying to restart your life, or, you have a pretty significant disability, there are different things that pressures on your life that are not necessarily normal. And where we're seeing generative AI, where all the really great stories are, hey, I use this at home to do this, right? And one of our program participants who was in a women's shelter that we service through our Women of Wealth program, she had a repoed car and she was trying to rebuild her credit and trying to get out of this extremely rough situation that she found herself in. And so we taught her how to use generative AI to just like ask questions. She was super scared that if she called, the repo company that, are they going to pick her up and send her to jail and all these things? And she didn't want to be disconnected from her kids and just crippled with fear on how to approach it. And so we taught her how to use generative AI to be like, all right, well, let's ask it questions. Let's arm you with the right questions, go ask the right people. We'll come to find out if she would have made the call, it would open up her case again and would have destroyed her credit even worse.
Wow.
Right? And so then she was able to take those questions with a financial advisor that we were able to connect her with and kind of help chart her on her path for growth. But that's just one of like many, many stories that we're finding when we're teaching these skills of how it's impacting real world at home in a way that a Google search may have taken hours of research to kind of decipher and understand. And now all of a sudden, generative AI may get you 90% there, but now you're armed with questions that you weren't even aware to ask. And that's just a different, paradigm shift for the type of people that Goodwill serves that may not have access to tech or may not have access to a laptop or even smartphones. As unimaginable for most as that is that this technology still is accessible yet not. and so without actually giving exposure and awareness and accessibility, it's hard for people to realize or keep their head up to see, what could be. And so that's what we try to do at Goodwill.
Oh, it's fantastic. Really great work. And I can tell that just that one story that you shared shows us how it can catapult people forward. So, I mean, I have a question for you that I had, like, what's one thing about Goodwill that might surprise people? But I feel you've already shared a bunch of things that might surprise people. But what, in your mind, is there one thing that you think of that comes to mind of just something that would surprise people who might be listening today?
I think the correlation of Goodwill and AI is not necessarily a leap that most people will make.
I agree.
Right. And but then, most people, I think 9 out of 10 people know us for the place where they donate, their household goods, or place where they can go shop and try to, treasure hunt or find something trendy, or, just stretch your dollar in difficult economic times when they come about. But the reality of it is that we're the largest workforce development provider in North America, right? We are all about trying to lift people up. We say hand up, not a hand out kind of thing, right? And
That's great.
when you think of all of the cyclical nature of poverty and criminality and all those things, most of that is the inability to find and keep, gainful employment. And so most people, I don't think, realize kind of the retail stores are there to help fund those different programs.
Yep.
And so I think that's kind of a best kept secret. But I would say definitely Goodwill and AI. When I first start talking to people, it's like, yeah, we're doing this, and this. Like, wait, what? Right? And so I'll share one little pilot. We built a AI agent to allow our employees to have a conversation with our handbook. And when we were doing the work, we were like, we found all kind of Goodwill history, because Goodwill's been around for over 100 years, and the brand itself. And in Central PA, our organization was a product of a merger from early 2000. We've been around for 76 years, 77 years almost. And so anyway, we did this handbook, and they were like, wait, we could we find a audio video of the founder of Goodwill, who was a Methodist priest, Reverend Edgar Helms. And so we started doing research, and we found this 1920s audio recording. And we were like, oh man, let's see if we can rip his voice, to see if he can maybe be the voice of this AI agent. To, you can have a conversation about Goodwill history and just feel this amazing connection to this legacy brand. And but then we sat back and we're like, wait, hold on, I know the grandson of this man. I better call and see if it's okay if we're kind of resurrecting him in a way. And of course, he was cool about it and wants to kind of take it on a road show to have conversations with his grandfather about Goodwill and Goodwill history, because he's still actively involved within the Goodwill world. But it forced us to have broader ethical conversations about just because we can, should we, right? So,
it's a great question.
Yeah, exactly. So we had an employee who unexpectedly, tragically passed away, and I posed a question. I was like, how would we feel if we recreated her in the same way? And instantaneously, it was like, oh no, we can't do that. That's a stretch too far and things like that. And so, like, part of it is that as we're building these tools, not only from a business standpoint, but as we start teaching these tools, there constantly needs to be this ethical kind of blend and question, like, take a seat back and be like, all right, just because we can do this now in a way that was never accessible, should we do it? So again, I think that those are the conversations that people want to equate with what the hell's Goodwill talk about AI ethics for. But the reality of it is that this is such an opportunity for everyone, regardless of your stature in life, regardless of your place in life. And so we have to treat it as an opportunity as much as it is a threat. But there's like a million other things, the sustainability piece, our reentry work, our mental health services work. We operate a clubhouse in Lehigh Valley for people with significant mental disabilities and other barriers to employment. But each Goodwill is different, right? Each Goodwill has their own hyper local mission delivery.
That's what I've always loved, is that when you've talked about Keystone Goodwill, you're looking at what you can do in the community that you serve. And, as you said, that's the mission of each Goodwill across the country is, okay, we don't have just like one size fits all as far as the programming we're offering. Exactly. We're addressing what are the needs of the community around us? How can we help them? I do think it's very clever to be able to use AI and to provide something that can really lift people up that I don't think would have been thought of before. I think it's very unique, using that angle.
I'm surprised at how unique that is, especially in the nonprofit space, right? It's like, I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around AI. And I think that naturally people are going to be very fearful because they're worried about, oh, is it going to replace me? And I very bluntly tell people, I said, AI is not going to replace you and all that, unless you're like in a computer science kind of specialty where there is a significant threat. But people who use and leverage generative AI absolutely are going to be immediately pushed to the top of the pile. And so, but even within that world, when I think about the people that Goodwill serves, part of our workforce development pipeline is helping people find jobs, right? So we're helping with resume building and career pathways and looking for jobs and cover letters and helping interviews, mock interviews, right? Well, now you have so many different AI agents out there that where someone who knows how to use this tech can apply to 100 jobs in a minute instead of one job in 100 minutes. That's a very different kind of, inequitable kind of playing field now that is booming. And so people that don't understand how to use the tools that are looking for jobs are even furthermore kind of left behind because they can't throw the sheer volume out there to try to find jobs and employment. So it's just this weird, again, talking about a weird ethical conversation. It's like, all right, well, we teach them how to use the tools, and now they're just perpetrating the problem of over applications or, just throwing a large casting net. But, at the end of the day, if you're in their shoes, like, should they not have access to those tools just because, there is this kind of moment of time problem? And so those are the kind of weird conversations that kind of constantly pull up. But no, I think it's overcoming the fear and understanding that whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, it is part of your life moving forward. You're not putting a toothpaste back in the tube and you're doing yourself a disservice not to at least educate yourself on what it can do and what it can't, and understand kind of the pace of change too. I think that's really hard for people to conceptualize. I think a lot of people played with it, maybe 2 years ago. It's like, this is a fad. This is, no real thing. Without understanding that when they interacted with it 2 years ago, it was like a, second grader. And now it's passing PhD level exams, right? And so I think the pace of change is so hard for people to
fast, man,
yeah, too fast. Too fast.
Even we like fast. I know. We like fast. We love all that stuff. But it's whiplash level stuff right now, and
it's impossible to keep up.
It is impossible. What's your do you have a technique of where you go to kind of stay abreast of new technology? Or we talked a lot about AI. I know you've been to some MIT training and whatnot. Is there any advice you'd have for anybody out there on where to look to keep playing with it, learning about it? What are your thoughts there?
My favorite go-to, and for most of us, YouTube is still an amazing resource to get skilled up, right? But if you're a professional listening to this, they have executive coursework now at MIT, at Harvard, Stanford. Really, most universities are starting to move toward kind of these micro doses of, just kind of stacking up, not necessarily credentials, but in some ways credentials, but getting real directed learning, right? And so highly recommend looking at any of those courses if you're looking to skill up as an executive. They could be pricey for sure, but at the end of the day, they can be transformational. I know they're transformational for me. But besides YouTube too, you can create an AI agent through ChatGPT now to actually pull all of the relevant AI related headlines and the different tools. But, it's hard because there are like 2,000 agents coming online like every day, right? So unless you're really understand sites like GitHub and things like that, it's really just setting up RSS feeds, old school RSS feeds, just to kind of feed you information. But YouTube is absolutely kind of one of the best. And there's so much free educational content out there with OpenAI Academy, with Google's AI Essentials training, Microsoft Elevate has some great training. The accessibility to skill up is pretty amazing. But if I had one recommendation for any listener out there, go learn advanced prompt engineering. Okay. If you learn advanced prompt engineering, and it's not hard. It sounds like it's hard, but it's really not, right? It's really how you structure a prompt. Okay. That in itself will teach you what systems can and cannot do and how to formulate it. But I can tell you, I think over the last couple months between travel and other things, my family has probably saved about $1,000 to $2,000 in expenses that I would have had to get professional services for here and there, right? And so part of it is learn advanced prompt engineering. Think about how you can use it at home, and in your personal and daily and work life. How do I bring AI alongside? Like treat it as an assistant. A personal assistant.
Learning opportunity too, right? You use it in things that'll help make your life easier, but at the same time, you're learning how to use it so you can apply it in other avenues depending on, what your role is or what you're doing.
That's exactly it. Well, and it's part of the reason why part of our AI literacy efforts at Goodwill Keystone is teaching individuals how to use it at home. Like we have, we've created kind of 3 hours of content of, hey, these are ways you can use at home. The thought process behind it is that if people are more likely to use at home, they'll be able to advocate for the ethical and right use cases that help propel their lives. But they're also going to be way more comfortable kind of adopting it at work as the tools become more readily available and start getting fine-tuned and things like that. So part of it where we started training AI at home is just to alleviate the fear and no, you can do some pretty profound things with an image, right? You know, tell it, and so so we do spend a lot of time just yes, we're going to use it at work. We're trying to find really creative ways, but culturally as an organization though, we had to build a culture of, create this AI sandbox that was kind of a controlled environment to handle the governance and the security issues, but then also really encourage people to go tinker, go break stuff, bring those ideas to the table because something you may think of may have transformational effect across the organization. And so, but that was deliberate and that was kind of bringing people to the party. And I had a peer, Dr. Michael Ward Davis, who's CEO out of Minnesota. He said, Ed, it's not about buy-in, it's about co-creation. And I love the aspect of
I like that
co-creation, right? Yeah, you want buy-in, and buy-in's more of a top-down narrative, but it's the co-creation from a bottom-up approach, right? And so essentially, as a CEO of my organization, I just gave permission to be like, hey, we're going to look at this. We need to look at this, but I need my people on the ground to tell me what problems we need to solve.
And it's kind of pulling it all the way around full circle, right? So you're talking about this idea of co-creation. We've talked before about human-centric technology and that a lot of technology, the best way to use it is to make us superpowered humans with the tech versus the replacement of the human, right? That's not
augment
necessary.
The human experience.
Augmented human. So I feel like that co-creation idea, whether you're co-creating with the technology, you're co-creating in your organization, you have permission to go and do those different pieces. I think that's a really lovely way to kind of categorize it.
For sure. Well, and I think also for any executives looking to kind of go on their AI journey, you need your governance. Yeah, you need your security. You should have an AI roadmap and all that stuff, right? All that corporate ease. But the reality of it is, I think a lot of organizations have problems, especially larger ones. I think the smaller ones are way more agile and can do some pretty profound things if I'm a small organization. But a large one, they're trying to put AI on top of existing legacy tech stacks. That's not really how it works. Not yet anyway, right? So really, the reality of it is where the secret sauce and where we've been able to move the needle the most is kind of old school 5Y, kind of bonefish type approaches where it's about problem identification, right? It's like, okay, what is the process? But what was the problem that original process was supposed to solve for? Start at the grassroots, the root of the problem you're trying to solve, and then use the most important people in our loop are the subject matter experts in HR and accounting and admission and retail. They're the ones that know the problems down on the ground that keeps your business from humming.
Right.
They're the ones that need to identify the problem. And then your technologists come over the top with the right appropriate AI tool because there's so many, it changes every day. You can have a version shift that just completely obliterates others.
I'm like only in ChatGPT is where I live most of the time. I have to branch out into others. I figured out how to do the image. I did a speech I think it was about 2 weekends ago, and I did all of my imagery because it's a picture only kind of presentation, was all through ChatGPT. So I was so proud that I got that going in there. But it's you need to kind of play with the different pieces. All right, so life hack. Give me one life hack of how you're using AI at home that I could apply to my home.
So depending on what your schedule is home, trying to find meals and meal planning is like such low hanging fruit, or house maintenance, right?
Okay.
So, I mentioned about taking a picture of your refrigerator, your spice rack and your pantry, load it in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever AI LLM that you like, and say, what do you identify? What type of recipes can I cook with what I have? And then give me a good recipe that I can just go ahead and start making that's under 20 minutes, right? Or 30 minutes. That's like low-hanging fruit, amazing. But small little maintenance things or gardening or like identification, just taking a picture and asking ChatGPT, what do you see? What is it? What can you help me with? Like I use it to help install a dryer vent, and things like that. But think of, if you have a roof repair, it's like, hey, what questions do I need to ask the person? How much should I anticipate a leaky roof costing, right?
Right.
It's those types of things where now all of a sudden you have a contractor on your hip, or, hey, I have this legal problem. What should I think about? What do I need to know? How much? Things
Smart.
like that, right? And and I also think also diving into some of the deep learning and each different LLM has different kind of attachments, for lack of a better word, where you can say, hey, I want to deep research this thing, where it'll go and research on the web and pull and have a much robust and reasoned type of thing. So understanding those little idiosyncrasies, but at home in particular, if you're a gardener, ask it to help you garden, right? If you're a
I might
cook,
need that.
like there's so much, right? If you need how do I wire this? At least it'll get you enough questions. Now, of course, trust but verify everything, right? Don't start playing with wires without verifying that, that information is correct, because it definitely has limits. But those are the things where it really moves the needle at home, especially for kids. I don't know whether or not, if you're a parent that's helping kids with homework, the way that the kids learn today is vastly different and is going to be even more different over the next couple of years as education catches up with AI. All right. And so, but there are even study guide modes where AI can be a study partner or a tutor.
That's clever.
And we're seeing a bunch of people kind of use that instead of just giving answers like, no, I'm going to walk you through what this means and why it means that. So again, it's just a greenfield of opportunity, but a ton of risk too.
So we talked a lot about AI, which I know is a sweet spot for you. But is there any other emerging technology or emerging workforce trends that you're seeing? Since again, you're providing all of this workforce teaching across the country and development. What else is that we don't know about that we should know about?
So high level, the biggest threats right now are probably Gen Z coming into the workforce. Like there's significant concerns, and some data starting to kind of show it that white collar job disruption at the entry level is going to start kind of going away. So, I think most people are fearful that about AI, that there's going to be these mass layoffs, not necessarily right away. And the data's not supporting that unless it's kind of niche markets, like I mentioned before, but it's going to be more through attrition, right? Is that you're able to produce so much more at work with these tools that you're not going to have to hire back some of the old positions that you once did, right? And so part of it is really getting to understanding where the tech can go within your world and what you do. Don't fall into the zombie apocalypse paradox and that,
there's no Skynet.
Oh no. I mean, look. I mean, if you really want to talk scary stuff, there's potential there. I think the thing that most concerns me is that, and I don't know if concern's the right word, but what I'm paying attention to is that there are scaling laws with AI in particular where we have not hit the limits of scaling laws, right? And so scaling law basically says that if you add compute with parameters with data, there's no limit to how good the AI can get. So this $800 billion investment into infrastructure, into energy rights and water rights, all of that is going to have an effect on society, because now they're anticipating 10% of all energy usage is going to come from AI development. So, you have in Pennsylvania, Microsoft having acquired 3 Mile Island to help produce for their AI farms. Well, there wasn't only the energy, but it was also the water rights of the Susquehanna, right? And so, or to get access to those types of things. So now as a consumer, as an individual, depending on how some of the deals are done, and some of the deals are structured really great for the local communities, right? They're great investments.
TMI has been a great revitalization of that area. I mean, it's great to see that Unit 1 come back online.
Absolutely. So, but part of it is that understanding that, hey, am I going to start competing for energy and water rights, right? With with corporations and things like that. Now, going to create a ton of jobs, perhaps, and will hopefully produce more energy for those communities and all that. So I think that there are these societal shifts that are going to naturally happen. And my bigger concern is just death through attrition. Right, is that those entry-level jobs are going to start going away. And again, remember, this is the first time in human history white-collar jobs are the ones that are being disrupted, right? So if you ask any trade school in the country in all likelihood, or a union, there's a lot more interest in the trades. And part of it is that, all right, maybe that's the last bastion of what AI can maybe not do. But even in that world, where I'm probably shifting my focus with the next couple of years is the more dynamic kind of dexterous robotics. Because the other point of the scaling laws is that the AI models are currently trained on pretty much every digital word written, on exception of your social media and, corporate information. But there's this whole synthetic data that hasn't really been folded into the models yet. So I forget the philosopher, but he basically said that, I think it's Ptolemy or somebody, I forget. But anyway, essentially said that humans can never tell everything they know, right? So if I asked you, how did you get here this morning? Could you tell me the hue of the sky, the wind direction, right?
Absolutely not.
Not, right? But when you add in Internet of Things, when you add in autonomous robotics that's gathering this data out in the real world, well, once that starts gathering and starting getting introduced into some of the models, now you're talking about a level of insight that even humans can't even tell, right? And so I think the narrative around, oh, is this an AI bubble and things like that? It's very different. People keep trying to conflate this with the .com bubble or even the housing bubble. It's not the same thing, because it's fundamental. Like, it has fundamentally changed the way that we work. And my bigger concern is
that's just the beginning as well, right?
Exactly.
I feel
Well,
like it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. And so what happens if AI does push us toward an age of abundance, right? Now we're questioning what it means to be human, because we're talking about the purpose of work.
Right.
If you have technologists out there talking about, oh, we're going to have to go to a 4-day weekday or a 3-day weekday. Sounds great in principle, right? But with the societal divides of income, disparity, we have not seen the data to say that, hey, it's going to uplift everyone. So again, I think part of the long-term concerns are, we are just at the beginning, right? The world can change 6 months from now when it comes to AI, right? And so I think the best thing to do is just pay attention, right? See where it's going, see how it's disrupting you at your work or your kids at school. Like, really think about how it's affecting your societal, how it is that you go about it day to day, and just pay attention and understand where the threats are coming. But also, there's so much opportunity that's coming down the pipe as well. So I get excited about both.
I can tell. Lots of passion there. Lots of passion. No, that's great. I think that's great advice. And, it's here, it's staying. We've got to, I think, just staying tuned in, paying attention, finding out what speaks to you, and not being afraid to try and use it are key. Well, I'd like to pull it back a little bit to your leadership journey, and just, are there any sort of significant milestones or moments in your life that kind of led you to be able to overcome obstacles, essentially, that have defined you to become, the Ed that you are today?
Several. I think growing up in New Orleans, for those of you that don't know, it's nicknamed the city that care forgot. And there's a charm to it, right? Is that you go there to unwind, and when you grow up in New Orleans, you kind of work hard during the week and in order to party hard on the weekend, kind of thing, right? And ambition really isn't a desired trait in New Orleans, because New Orleans has been around for over 300 years, and it's kind of a mainstay of American culture, a cornerstone of American culture. But while I was there, I think one, obviously my Hurricane Katrina experience was something that absolutely shaped me. My wife and I were transitionally homeless for about 6 weeks post Katrina. My organization at the time, we lost 13 employees in Katrina. Either we couldn't find them or they were lost in the flood.
That's quite a thing to overcome.
It is very much so, yeah. And you learn, when we went back home to help rebuild, there are many shades of gray, right? There is survival mode, and then there's survival mode, right? And so, I was fortunate. I don't really tell my Katrina story in New Orleans often, because I didn't wade through water. I didn't punch a hole through a roof. And some of you may have seen the 20-year kind of anniversary on it. But, even within our journey, my wife and I, we were stuck to a hotel room in St. Augustine, Florida, which was about a 9-hour drive away, because that was the closest place we could find a hotel.
Wow.
And I wound up becoming kind of the triage of my organization, because I had employees that were trapped in their apartments and their houses in water, and, trying to coordinate FEMA and things like that, and just trying to help wherever we could. And that shapes you, right? And what I realized, though, within all that, I thrive in chaos. But I think it's also a defense mechanism as well, right? And because, instead of dealing with the trauma that I was kind of going through with the family and just my work and my city, that compartmentalization was a survival trait, right? And so, so Hurricane Katrina absolutely shaped the way that I view the world, positively and negatively. I mean, I had my spirits renewed from the support that I saw the world give New Orleans post Katrina, right? And even during, I mean, wife and I were at a Holiday Inn Select in Amelia Island. Shout out to Holiday Inn Select Amelia Island. But we ran out of money, and I had to, it was the first time, even though I grew up in poverty, it was the first time I ever had to go beg for help. And so went and talked with the hotel manager. I was like, look, I haven't heard from my family in a week, who are stuck to, I don't know, 16 people to a house in the middle of Mississippi, and they had lost electricity, had no way to communicate. And my wife's family were, I think, 6 or 8 to a hotel room in Houston, and I-10 fell in the water, and it would have took 60 hours to kind of drive there. And so I was like, look, we're trying to figure out where we go next. Like, anything you can do to help, right? And through his grace, he connected us with his local church. That congregation raised funds to help us get on the road, and they had they had no reason to do it, but they wanted to help. And here my wife and I with 2 dogs, just like floundering out there, not knowing what to do, and so my wife and I were 2 of 3 climate refugees, literal climate refugees that landed in Vermont. So from New Orleans to Vermont, to Lake Champlain, Burlington, up to
Ed. I mean, this when we talk about what you're doing at Goodwill, when you talk about what you care about and your passions for helping people, especially those with disabilities or disadvantages, I mean, this story fits so into the picture of who you are, why you do what you do. You've literally had others who helped you. So this idea of, lifting up others and helping, I mean, it's certainly ingrained in you, and beautiful that you're now able to pay that back to others and pay it forward in a beautiful way.
Well, I don't know if trauma is always the best place to lead.
It's true.
But I tell my staff, at Goodwill, it's like, I know if someone has the courage to come ask you for help, I know what that means. You know what I mean? Because behind the courage is the shame, is the guilt, is the uncertainty. And for someone to come and ask you for help in their time of need, we have a sense of urgency, and we have a pace at Goodwill Keystone to honor that, right? To understand that if someone's coming to us for help in any capacity, what that means, that we got to honor that courage with our best effort, right? And I even reflect on my 3 months on the job when I first joined Goodwill in New Orleans. I went to an award ceremony through one of the programs, and this was reserved for people with significant disabilities. And there were a lot of program participants there that literally had every reason to give up. And yet these program winners are winning, and I can see what it meant, the work, and how it transformed the family and the joy it gave them to be recognized. And I was feeling down on myself because I was with that property management company for 11 years, but it was kind of a divorce when I left, right? And because there was so much energy and that wound up not coming to fruition at the end of the day. But seeing my people overcome and find purpose and joy, I'm like, if I can't do it for myself, I sure in the hell am I going to do it for them, right? And at that point, I had drunk the Kool-Aid. Like, I was in it to win it. I had a renewed purpose. And so understanding within the social enterprise construct, I can take this entrepreneurism and weaponize it for good, right?
Taking these moments of challenge, it's all about how we frame things, right? We can take moments of challenge or hardship in our life, and we can let them pull us down, right? And sometimes we have to go down to kind of come back up again. But at some point, if we can channel that for good, as you said, or channel that into something positive, reframe it, use it as motivation, I mean, it can become quite powerful.
Absolutely. Well, I think also it's about being authentic, right?
Yes.
I mean, I went bankrupt when I was 21. Because I thought I was hot stuff, graduate honors from Loyola in New Orleans, and got to work in the office of government affairs for Princeton University as like an internship. I just thought I was hot stuff, and came home, couldn't find work for 9 months, right? And so having gone bankrupt at 21, when I finally found a job, I had to pay more in bills than I did the money I was making. I was just about to get married. I'm like, I didn't want to saddle my wife with that debt. And so I think that in my world with the people I work with, like, I can kind of call bull a little bit, or sorry, and so part of it is that, when I talk to our program participants and our employees, like I've lived a day in the life, right? And so when you're a leader, understanding your authenticity, right, and understanding your humanity, doesn't matter. You don't have to grow up poor. You don't have to, deal with criminality or addiction, things like that I've had to kind of deal with in my journey. To be authentic as a leader, to help to connect with your people, because at the end of the day, we're servant leaders, right? We're here for the people that we serve, both internally as our employees, but then even externally with all the great work that you and Stephanie do out in the community. But you lead with authenticity, right? And so part of that is, I got ADHD too, right? I am a little neurodivergent, if you couldn't tell, with my rapid speak. But part of that is just understanding where people are, understanding the world is full of shades of gray. And for me, from my leadership journey, like I can pinpoint to these little moments, these crossroads that have led me. Like I learn more watching what not to do than I do. Like if you told me how you're successful, I don't know if I'm gonna get much out of it. But you tell me how you failed,
yep,
I'm gonna pay attention.
Those are the biggest learning moments, right? Those are the biggest learning moments.
Well, how do you learn? Like from a leadership standpoint, because I know you're intellectually fascinated with
curious.
Curious. Yeah.
I think you have that quality too. I think 100%. We're both very curious individuals.
Yeah. People are fascinating.
Curious about people, curious about technology, curious about different topics, open to learning, realizing that you don't have all the answers, I think is huge. Yeah. And then again, being brave enough to try stuff and fail, and that it's okay. And, just that every failure is a learning opportunity.
Oh, 100%. So. Yeah. Well, that's where we first connected, right? Your skunk works, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And I love the notion of skunk works and a controlled environment to innovate. Yeah. And, but again, I think there's a spice of life to that as well, right? I mean, we're here for a finite amount of time. Well,
and isn't it wonderful to be our authentic selves and just
100%.
be our own whatever it is that makes up who you are, to be able to own that and I think we're forever unpacking what that means.
But
I think that is where we really find and either make our impact or really enjoy life, right? And that the act of living. Well, Ed, I mean, I think we could keep talking for a really long time, but I have one more question I want to ask you. So we've talked about your journey, we've talked about Goodwill, we've talked about your journey around Goodwill, like your passion for what it is that you're doing. What is there anything right now? One thing, it could be a book, a habit, a mindset that's lifting you at this moment. What's lifting Ed today?
I think. There are a few things. I mean, the business is going as great as I could have hoped. We're serving, I think, 220% more people since I've been here, and
incredible.
So like I'm at the point of my career where this is probably, I know I'm at the kind of peak of my career, right? And so, but part of it is also, leaning into time management a little more, right? How do I protect not only my family's time, work time, mental time, and things like that, and being very deliberate about how I am protecting that time, right? And so delegating where I can and things of that sort. But even to the point where, like, I don't take any external meetings on a Monday or Friday unless I approve,
Smart.
right? Because I know I need desk time. If I don't control it, things will slip through the crack. And so just being super deliberate about that. But then also, I think what I'm finding uplifting now is that I'm finding myself wanting to be more creative.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how do I scratch that itch? You can find mission anywhere. You can find creativity anywhere. So I've been doing it with work, but there's a part of me that, I want to write, right?
Ooh.
And I would love to write a book on AI ethics from a different point of view.
We heard it here
and all
first,
that.
Ed.
All right, that's it. Now I'm kind of committed, right? I've done set it out in the ether. So like part of it is like, how am I going to find the time? How do I make the time to be able to do these things that doesn't sacrifice my time for my 15-year-old and my 10-year-old and my wife and all the other obligations kind of out there.
That's
so
168 hours in a week, and it's up to us. We are the ones who actually control those hours.
So
right?
Do you have tips for me?
Well, I mean, my big thing is to protect your energy and to be realistic with what you can actually accomplish, and to really think about, like, how do you want to spend that time? And there's a portion for work, but there's also a portion to be with my family. And then the thing that I've done maybe isn't necessarily how to manage that 168. I am still a work in progress on that.
Sure.
But I do use my calendar blocking and things like that to kind of just protect days and be real thoughtful about it. But one thing I've really been trying to do is lean into things that bring me joy. And that doesn't mean that I'm good at them. Okay. So I've started, I thought it was wood carving, but I think it's more like wood chiseling, where I'm like chiseling away the stump. We have a lot of wood on our property. My husband has a wood shop. And so that I'm doing it. I don't know what's going to come out of it. It's probably just going to be this odd shape. It'll probably take me, a year till it becomes anything. But the act of just being creative with it, messing around, I don't have to be good at it, but I'm just sort of doing something pure for the joy of it. And it is fun for me. That's the kind of stuff I'm trying to seek myself, right?
Well, you remind me, I think one thing that I think when we sit in the chairs, right? And if you ever become a CEO, or if you're a sitting CEO, hopefully you'll recognize this, is that a lot of times the work we put in, we don't see the fruit of that labor for a long time, right? In my world, I'm constantly kind of living 3 years out. Like most of my energy is focused on the future state of the organization.
Well, you're a futurist too. So you're visionary looking forward. It's definitely.
But you still have to have the operational chops to know what's real and it's not. And my team will tell you sometimes I don't know what the difference is. But it's part of what pushes us. But part of that though is like some of my favorite things to do, and I haven't done it and I need to do it because I enjoy it. But like in my stores, just pulling old product from a store or merchandising, putting product out, at the end of that time, I know I've accomplished something, right?
That was very fun to organize.
Oh, for sure, right? And so, but part of it is like when I think of your wood carving and whatnot, is that you're going to see the fruit of your labor, regardless of what that is.
Right.
Like you're going to see an outcome from that energy. And I think leaders, sometimes we forget, unless we're kind of day to day or in the weeds, you don't really have an opportunity to take a step back and really appreciate the work that you did.
Yep.
Whether it was just, Bruce Lee flow like water type of approach, or whether it was kind of incremental. And so I think that's where the creativity need is, right? It's like, all right, how do I see the fruit of the effort? Maybe that instantaneous joy, that kind of TikTok programming of I need instantaneous satisfaction. But we have to find that, right?
We do have to find that.
And it shouldn't be on our phone. We should be carving wood.
Put that phone away.
Exactly.
It's hard to do, but
it is very hard to do. I mean, we're cyborgs.
I would agree on that. Well, Ed, thanks so much for sharing your journey and all the inspiring work that you're doing at Goodwill Keystone.
I appreciate it.
You've really shown us what it means to lead with purpose, to innovate with heart, and to lift entire communities with the work that you're doing. And your story really reminds us that leadership isn't just about reaching the top. It's about bringing others up with you. And we are better for the lift you are creating. So thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the opportunity. It was fun.
Yes. It's fascinating to hear what other organizations, even nonprofits, are doing to leverage AI to help their customers. Ed and I could probably have talked for another couple of hours on the subject. You can check out the great work that Ed has been up to in the show notes below. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and always lift.